God is saying, someone close to you is not telling you the truth. This is not a random thought. It is not anxiety. It is not imagination. It is a warning. And the fact that you are hearing these words right now means heaven has decided that you cannot move forward without knowing what is about to unfold. A hidden secret will soon be exposed, and it will shock you deeply. The weight of this message is heavy because it touches your heart, your trust, and the circle you believed was safe. This is not about strangers. This is not about distant enemies. This is about someone close, someone who smiles with you, someone who speaks kindly, someone who has had access to your thoughts, your plans, your vulnerabilities. And yet, there is something they have not told you. Do not scroll past this warning. Open immediately before midnight. Don't skip God. Midnight is not just a time on the clock. It is a spiritual boundary. It represents a shift, a crossing over, a moment when darkness reaches its peak before light begins to rise. In the spirit, midnight is when hidden things begin to tremble. It is when secrets lose their grip. It is when what was done in silence starts to echo. And God is urging you to pay attention before this turning point arrives. Because once exposure begins, it cannot be reversed. You may have felt something was off. Tamale consistencies, subtle changes in tone, words that didn't quite align with actions. Perhaps you ignored it because love covered it. Perhaps you dismissed it because you didn't want to seem suspicious. Perhaps you convinced yourself you were overthinking. But the Spirit hath been nudging you gently. There has been a quiet stirring in your heart that you could not explain. That stirring was not fear. It was discernment. This message is urgent because what is hidden is already rising to the surface. The exposure is not something that might happen. It is something that is set in motion. God does not reveal secrets without purpose. When He warns, it is because protection is needed. When He speaks, it is because timing matters. And right now, timing matters in your life. There is a decision ahead of you. There is a path you are about to take. There is trust you are about to deepen. And if this truth were not exposed, it could redirect your destiny in a way that brings pain. Understand this clearly. God is not trying to create division. He is preventing destruction. He is not trying to fill you with paranoia. He is preparing you for clarity. There is a difference between suspicion born from insecurity and revelation born from heaven. What you are sensing is not insecurity. It is illumination. The shock will come because you did not expect it from this person. You expected loyalty. You expected transparency. You expected alignment. That is why the impact will feel deep. But even in that shock, there will be confirmation. You will remember this moment. You will remember that you were warned. And instead of being completely blindsided, you will stand anchored, knowing that God already went before you. Why is this important now? Because delays can be dangerous. When God says, "Open immediately before midnight," it is a call to spiritual alertness. It is a call to pause and listen. It is a call to examine without accusing, to observe without reacting, to pray before confronting. The exposure is not yours to force. It is God's to reveal. Your responsibility is awareness. Some revelations come gently. Others come subtly. This one will feel sudden. Conversations may surface. Messages may be uncovered. Words may slip unintentionally. Or circumstances may align in a way that brings truth into the light without you even searching for it. That is how divine exposure works. It does not require manipulation. It unfolds. There is also a reason you were chosen to hear this warning ahead of time. Many people walk into betrayal unprepared because they ignore the whispers of God. But you were directed here for a reason. There is protection over you. There is a covering over your future. And heaven is intervening before midnight strikes in your season. This is not about fear. It is about readiness. It is about guarding your heart without hardening it. It is about being wise without becoming bitter. Someone close to you is not telling you the truth. That sentence carries weight, but it also carries mercy. Because exposure is mercy when it prevents deeper wounds. The next hours, days, or moments may bring clarity that changes how you see someone. And yes, it may shock you deeply. But do not let the shock shake your faith. Let it strengthen your trust in the one who warned you first. God does not expose to embarrass you. He exposes to protect you. He exposes to redirect you. He exposes to preserve your destiny. So do not scroll past this warning. Do not dismiss it as coincidence. Do not skip God. Pause. Reflect. Pray. Listen. Because midnight represents a threshold. And before you cross it, heaven wanted you informed. This is only the beginning of what is about to be revealed. There is a reason deception often hides behind familiarity. It does not arrive wearing the face of an enemy. It comes dressed as comfort. It sounds like encouragement. It feels like loyalty. And that is why it is so dangerous. When God says someone close to you is not telling you the truth, He is revealing something that has been carefully concealed under routine conversations, shared laughter, and ordinary interactions. Hidden truths do not always look dark. Sometimes they look harmless. Sometimes they even look loving. But the spirit behind them is not aligned with transparency. You must understand this. Deception survives on proximity. The closer someone is, the easier it is for them to shape narratives, filter information, and control what you see. A stranger cannot manipulate your perception easily. But someone close to you can influence your thoughts with subtle words. They can adjust details. They can withhold critical information. They can smile while strategically avoiding certain topics. And because you trust them, you do not immediately question it. The Spirit of God, however, sees what is hidden beneath the surface. He discerns motives that human eyes cannot detect. There are moments when you feel a pause in your spirit during a conversation. A small hesitation. A flicker of discomfort. A sentence that feels incomplete. You may not have concrete evidence, but you sense something unfinished. That is not imagination. That is discernment beginning to awaken. Discernment does not shout. It whispers. It does not accuse. It alerts. And often, emotional attachment tries to silence it. You may say to yourself, they would never do that. You may defend them internally before anyone even questions them. You may override your own intuition because the relationship feels too important to doubt. But God is saying that emotional attachment must never overpower spiritual clarity. Hidden truths follow patterns. They avoid direct answers. They change subjects quickly. They create distractions. They sometimes over-explain minor details while remaining vague about major issues. They may project suspicion onto others to redirect attention away from themselves. They might even act overly supportive to maintain access to your trust. And if you are not spiritually alert, you will mistake performance for sincerity. This is why timing matters. You are in a season where decisions are forming. Your next step requires clear vision. If someone is withholding truth, it could distort your judgment. It could cause you to rely on incomplete information. It could influence choices that shape your future. And God will not allow your destiny to be built on dissection. That is why exposure is coming. Do not misunderstand this message as an invitation to confront recklessly. It is not time to accuse. It is time to observe. Watch patterns. Listen closely. Pay attention to consistency. Truth is steady. Lies require maintenance. Truth does not panic under scrutiny. Deception becomes defensive when gently questioned. You do not need to create chaos to uncover reality. Reality has a way of surfacing when light enters the room. There is also a spiritual layer to this. Not every hidden truth is rooted in hatred. Sometimes it is rooted in fear. Fear of losing influence. Fear of losing control. Fear of being replaced. But regardless of motive, secrecy creates imbalance. Relationships built on partial truth cannot sustain long-term alignment. And God is correcting imbalance before it causes collapse. You must also guard your own response. When suspicion rises, the enemy wants you to react in anger or paranoia. But wisdom responds with calmness. Pray before you speak. Reflect before you act. Ask God to sharpen your perception without hardening your heart. Because discernment without love becomes judgment, and love without discernment becomes vulnerability. This is the moment to align yourself with divine clarity. If this message is speaking directly to your situation, do not ignore it. Take a moment right now and declare, I receive discernment. Write it in the comments as a sign of agreement with what God is activating in your spirit. When you engage, you are not just typing words. You are aligning yourself with awareness. Also, take a second to like this message and share it with someone who may need this warning. And if you have not already, subscribe to this channel so you never miss a word that heaven releases for your protection. There are too many silent battles happening behind smiles, and awareness is your shield. Remember, exposure is not about humiliation. It is about liberation. When truth surfaces, it sets boundaries. It clarifies intentions. It separates manipulation from authenticity. And even though it may hurt initially, it prevents deeper wounds in the future. Someone close to you is not telling you the truth, but you are not alone in discovering it. The Spirit of God is guiding you step by step. What is hidden cannot remain hidden forever. And as we move forward, you will begin to see why this revelation is not just about betrayal. It is about repositioning. What you must understand now is this. The exposure is not a possibility. It is an appointment. God is not reacting to dissection. He has already scheduled its unveiling. Before the whisper reached your ears, before suspicion brushed against your thoughts, heaven had already marked the moment when truth would rise. That is why this message feels urgent. It is not random emotion. It is divine timing. God does not reveal secrets to wound you. He reveals them to shield you. There is a difference between curiosity and protection. Curiosity wants information to satisfy the mind. Protection reveals information to guard the heart. And in this season, your heart is being guarded. The truth that is about to surface is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to redirect you. If it remained hidden, it would slowly erode trust, distort judgment, and entangle your future in something unstable. But because God loves you, He interrupts what could harm you. You may be asking, why would God allow it to go this far? Because exposure requires evidence. Sometimes God allows patterns to complete themselves so that when truth is revealed, there is no confusion. There is clarity. You will not be left wondering if you imagined it. You will not be stuck debating whether you misunderstood. The revelation will carry confirmation. It will align with the subtle checks you have been feeling in your spirit. It will connect the dots. There is also a difference between suspicion and divine revelation. Suspicion is anxious, restless, and fueled by insecurity. Divine revelation is calm, steady, and rooted in peace, even when it speaks of something painful. If what you are sensing feels steady rather than frantic, that is a sign God is involved. He does not operate in chaos. Even when he exposes, he does it with precision. Secrets cannot survive in God's light. They may thrive in shadows for a season, but light is persistent. Think of how darkness vanishes the moment a switch is flipped. It does not argue. It does not negotiate. It simply disappears. In the same way, what has been concealed around you is already weakening. The pressure of truth is building. Conversations are aligning. Circumstances are shifting. The very thing that was carefully hidden is beginning to surface through cracks that cannot be sealed. You may feel emotionally unprepared. After all, when someone close to you is not telling you the truth, it touches more than information. It touches trust. And trust is sacred. The shock will not only come from what was hidden, but from who hid it. That is why God is preparing you in advance. He is strengthening your inner foundation before the shaking occurs. Do not rush to confrontation. Do not try to force exposure. When God sets revelation in motion, human interference only complicates it. Your role is alignment. Stay prayerful. Stay observant. Stay steady. The unveiling will happen in a way that leaves no doubt. And here is something deeper. Sometimes exposure is not only about them. It is about you stepping into a new level of discernment. You are being upgraded spiritually. Where you once relied solely on words, you will begin to recognize patterns. Where you once trusted blindly, you will now trust wisely. This is growth. Painful growth, perhaps, but growth nonetheless. There is a shift happening behind the scenes that you cannot yet see, and when it becomes visible, it will explain the discomfort you have been carrying. You will look back at this moment and realize that God was not being dramatic, He was being merciful. Hold on. What comes next changes everything. Because after exposure comes separation or strengthening. There is no middle ground. When truth surfaces, relationships either rebuild on honesty or dissolve under reality. And what happens in your situation will reveal who was truly aligned with your destiny. And now, as this truth settles in your spirit, I want to seal this moment with a prophetic act. Type light exposes all in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 316 is now activated. As you declare those words, you are not wishing for chaos. You are welcoming clarity. You are inviting divine light into every hidden corner of your life. And when light enters, confusion loses its power. The oil does not flow where darkness rules. It flows where light is welcomed. If this message has stirred your spirit, this is your moment to act in faith. Scripture says, "Arise, shine, for your light has come." That is not just ancient text. It is God speaking directly to you now. When you sow into this mission through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are not funding a channel. You are fueling light that reaches souls standing in their own midnight hour. I feel led to say this clearly. I am stepping into obedience by supporting what protects my destiny. Your seed becomes oil in the lamp, fire on the altar, and manna for someone starving for truth. Do not miss the blessing attached to this obedience. So boldly, knowing that as you release, heaven responds. Activate your giving now and let your obedience speak in the Spirit. The truth is already rising. The exposure is already set. and you will be glad you were prepared for what is about to be revealed. There is a question echoing in your heart right now. Why did it have to be someone close? Why not a stranger? Why not someone distant? Someone whose betrayal would barely touch your emotions? Why did this warning come wrapped in the name of familiarity, trust, and shared history? The answer is not simple, but it is purposeful. When God allows exposure within your inner circle, it is never accidental. Proximity reveals what distance conceals. Someone far away cannot shape your daily decisions. They cannot influence your thinking in subtle ways. They cannot quietly redirect your plans. But someone close can. That is why this revelation carries weight. It is not just about information being hidden. It is about influence being misused. Because this creates access. Access creates opportunity. An opportunity, when misaligned with truth, becomes a doorway for quiet damage. The enemy understands this principle well. He does not always attack from the outside. He often works through familiarity, through voices you trust, through counsel you accept without question, through reassurance that sounds supportive but subtly steers you off course. But here is the deeper truth. God allowed proximity before exposure because he was testing the foundation of that relationship. Time reveals character. Shared experiences expose motives. Pressure exposes integrity. And sometimes, God allows someone to stay close long enough for their patterns to become undeniable. If exposure had come too early, you might have defended them. You might have excused them. You might have rejected the warning entirely. But now, after certain inconsistencies and internal nudges, you are ready to see clearly. The pain you feel at the thought of betrayal is proof that you value the relationship. And valuing someone is not weakness. It is human. But God is teaching you that love must walk alongside discernment. Blind trust feels noble, but wise trust is powerful. You are not being hardened. You are being refined. It also had to be someone close because your next season requires purified alignment. Not everyone who walks with you today is meant to walk with you tomorrow. Some people are assigned for a chapter, not the whole story. And when chapters change, roles shift. Exposure is often the transition point between seasons. There is something else happening beneath the surface. When betrayal comes from a distance, it creates irritation. When it comes from closeness, it creates transformation. It forces you to examine boundaries. It challenges how you define loyalty. It strengthens your ability to read spiritual atmospheres. In other words, this moment is shaping you. God is not surprised by what is about to be revealed. He saw it when you first met them. He saw it during the early conversations. He saw it in the subtle choices they made when you were not looking. And yet, he allowed the connection to continue because there were lessons embedded in it. Growth rarely happens in isolation. It happens in indirection. Perhaps this person admired you but secretly envied your progress. Perhaps they supported you publicly but questioned you privately. Perhaps they smiled while holding back information that would have changed your decisions. Whatever the motive, understand this: hidden intentions cannot coexist with divine purpose for long. When your destiny begins to accelerate, misaligned relationships begin to shake. It had to be someone close because you are stepping into a level where trust will be currency. In your next season, you cannot afford confusion in your inner circle. You cannot afford whispers behind your back. You cannot afford hidden agendas disguised as loyalty. So God is cleaning house before elevation. Do not interpret this as punishment. Interpret it as preparation. Before builders construct a higher floor, they inspect the foundation. Weak beams are reinforced or removed. It is not personal. It is structural. And your life is under divine construction. Yes, the realization may hurt. Yes, the awareness may sting. But pain does not mean abandonment. It means adjustment. And adjustments create stability. The closeness made the lesson deeper, but it will also make the breakthrough stronger. One day, you will look back and understand why it had to happen this way. You will see how exposure prevented entanglement, how revelation protected your peace, how clarity preserved your calling. And you will thank God not for the betrayal, but for the timing of the truth. Someone close to you is not telling you the truth, but that truth will not destroy you. It will distinguish who truly belongs in your future. It will clarify who was assigned to walk beside you and who was only meant to pass through. This is not the end of your trust. It is the purification of it. And what remains after purification is stronger, wiser, and aligned with purpose. Midnight is not just a number on a clock. It is a spiritual marker. It is the dividing line between what was and what will be. When God says, "Open immediately before midnight," He is not simply referring to urgency in minutes and seconds. He is speaking about a threshold moment in your life. A crossing. A shift that cannot be undone once it happens. Midnight represents the peak of darkness. It is the hour when visibility is lowest, when silence feels heavier, when the world seems still. But spiritually, midnight is also the moment just before breakthrough. It is the final stretch before light begins to rise. That is why so many divine interventions in Scripture and history seem to occur at midnight seasons. Not always literally at 12:00 a.m., but at the point when circumstances feel most unclear, most uncertain, most hidden. You may be in a midnight season right now. You sense something is off, but you cannot fully see it. You feel tension, but you cannot explain it. Conversations feel layered. Words feel incomplete. There is a quiet discomfort that lingers after interactions. This is spiritual midnight. It is the hour where your eyes are adjusting to darkness, and your spirit is waiting for light. The warning to open before midnight is a call to awareness before the shift. Once midnight passes, a new day begins. But the transition can be abrupt. Exposure can feel sudden. Emotions get wet quickly. God is giving you this message before the shift so you are not overwhelmed when it arrives. Midnight is also symbolic of decision. It forces a choice. When a day ends, you cannot return to it. When truth is revealed, you cannot unlearn it. You cannot pretend you did not see what was exposed. Midnight closes one chapter and opens another without negotiation. And that is why this warning feels intense. It is not just about knowing a secret. It is about stepping into a new reality once that secret is uncovered. There is something powerful about preparation. If you walk into revelation unaware, it feels like an earthquake. But if you are prepared in spirit, it feels like confirmation. The ground may shake, but you are steady. That is what God is doing right now. He is steadying you before the clock strikes. Think about how often life changes suddenly. A conversation shifts everything. A message reveals more than expected. A slip of the tongue uncovers what was hidden for months. These moments feel random, but they are rarely accidental. They are timed. They are allowed. They are positioned. Midnight is also when distractions are minimal. The noise quiets. The world slows. It is easier to hear subtle sounds in the silence. Spiritually, this means clarity often comes when external noise decreases. You may notice that recently you have had moments of deeper reflection. Moments where you replay conversations in your mind. Moments where something small stands out more than it did before. That is your spiritual hearing sharpening in the quiet. You not fear midnight. Fear ignorance. Midnight may bring exposure, but ignorance allows harm to continue unnoticed. When truth rises, it may disrupt comfort, but it restores alignment. And alignment is worth temporary discomfort. There is also an urgency attached to this symbolism. Before midnight strikes, you have a window of preparation. You have a chance to pray differently, to observe more carefully, to detach emotionally just enough to see clearly. This is not about withdrawing love. It is about anchoring yourself in wisdom. Sometimes people think darkness means defeat, but darkness is often the backdrop for revelation. Stars are only visible at night. Light is most noticeable when contrast is strong. In the same way, the truth that is about to surface will be unmistakable because of the darkness it rises from. When midnight passes, something irreversible happens. You step into awareness. You step into a new level of maturity. You step into a clear understanding of who truly stands with you. That is why this moment matters so deeply. Open immediately before midnight. That instruction is not panic-driven. It is purpose-driven. God is saying, prepare your heart before the shift. Strengthen your spirit before the reveal. Anchor your emotions before the shock. Because once the clock turns, what was hidden will begin to surface. And when it does, you will not be confused. You will remember that you were warned at midnight. When God reveals that someone close to you is not telling you the truth, the immediate focus is often on the act itself, the concealment, the omission, the distortion. But beneath every hidden truth lies a motive. And understanding the motive is just as important as discovering the secret. Because the motive tells you whether this was weakness, fear, jealousy, control, or something even deeper. Not every secret is born from hatred. Some are born from insecurity. A person may hide truth because they fear losing their position in your life. They may sense your growth, your elevation, your increasing clarity, and feel threatened by it. Instead of celebrating your rise, they quietly compete with it. Instead of aligning with your destiny, they try to manage it. And management often begins with withholding information. Jealousy is subtle. It rarely announces itself openly. It disguises itself as concern. It speaks in tones of caution. It asks questions that seem protective but are actually limiting. If someone close to you feels overshadowed by your progress, they may distort facts to slow you down. They may hide opportunities. They may downplay your strengths when speaking to others. They may create narratives that make them appear essential to your success. And all of it is rooted in a desire to remain significant. Then there's fear. Fear can drive people to conceal truth because they are afraid of consequences, afraid of confrontation, afraid of losing trust, afraid of exposure. When fear rules someone's heart, honesty feels risky, so they choose silence, or partial truth, or carefully edited stories that protect their image. But fear-driven secrecy eventually collapses under pressure. Control is another powerful motive. When someone withholds information, they control the narrative. They decide what you know and what you don't. They shape your decisions by shaping your awareness. And control thrives in secrecy. If they reveal everything, they lose influence. So they reveal only what benefits them. There is also the possibility of manipulation hidden behind kindness. A person may appear supportive while quietly steering you away from certain paths. They may discourage relationships that threaten their influence. He may subtly isolate you from voices that would challenge their version of events. Manipulation rarely looks aggressive. It often looks protective. But its goal is self-preservation, not your well-being. Spiritually, this is where warfare enters the picture. The enemy does not always attack your finances, your health, or your opportunities directly. Sometimes he targets your discernment. If he can cloud your perception through someone you trust, he can redirect your path without you realizing it. A hidden motive becomes a spiritual foothold, and if left unexposed, it grows stronger. But here is the powerful truth. Motives cannot stay hidden forever. Pressure reveals intention. When circumstances tighten, when questions arise, when inconsistencies stack up, what is beneath the surface begins to show. And that is where you are now. The pressure is building. The hidden motive is becoming harder to maintain. You may feel conflicted because you still see the good in this person. You remember their kindness. You recall moments of support. And that is valid. People are complex. Someone can care about you and still operate from insecurity. They can love you and still fear your growth. They can mean well and still choose secrecy. Understanding motive does not excuse behavior, but it clarifies it. This is why discernment is crucial. You must ask not only what was hidden, but also why was it hidden. The answer will guide your response. If the motive is insecurity, boundaries may restore balance. If it is manipulation, distance may be necessary. If it is fear, confrontation with compassion may bring resolution. But if it is persistent deception rooted in selfish ambition, then separation may be the only path to peace. God is not revealing this to create hatred in your heart. He is revealing it to restore clarity in your life. When motives are exposed, confusion fades. You no longer wonder why certain conversations felt heavy. You no longer question why certain opportunities slipped away. You begin to see patterns. And patterns tell stories. There is a reason this hidden motive is surfacing now. Your destiny is accelerating. And hidden agendas cannot travel with you where you are going. The higher you rise, the more dangerous concealed intentions become. God is removing what cannot align with your elevation. Do not let anger control you when the motive becomes clear. Anger clouds judgment. Instead, let wisdom guide you. Observe without exploding. Reflect before reacting. Pray before speaking. Because your response will shape the next chapter. The hidden motive behind the secret is not just about them. It is about refining you, strengthening you, teaching you to recognize spiritual undertones in ordinary conversations, elevating your awareness to a level where manipulation cannot easily penetrate. The exposure is coming, and when it does, the motive will become obvious. What once felt confusing will feel clear. What once felt uncertain will feel confirmed. And you will realize that God was not only exposing a secret, He was revealing the heart behind it. When the hidden truth finally surfaces, the first emotion you may feel is shock. Not because you had no warning, but because your heart hoped it wasn't true. Shock is the collision between intuition and reality. It is the moment when what you sensed quietly becomes visible publicly. And when it involves someone close to you, the impact reaches deeper than logic. It touches memory. It touches shared experiences. It touches trust. You may replay past conversations in your mind. Words that once seemed ordinary will suddenly carry new meaning. Moments that felt harmless will now appear strategic. You will connect dots that were once scattered. And in that realization, there will be a pause, a stillness where you sit with the weight of understanding. That pause is the shock settling in. Shock does not mean weakness. It means your expectations have been disrupted. You expected honesty. You expected transparency. You expected alignment. When reality contradicts expectation, your system needs time to recalibrate. That recalibration can feel overwhelming at first, but it is also the beginning of clarity. There is a difference between shock and destruction. Shock is temporary. Destruction is permanent. And what you are about to experience is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to awaken you. The enemy would prefer that exposure breaks your trust completely, that it hardens your heart toward everyone, that it convinces you isolation is safer than connection. But God's purpose is not to isolate you. It is to refine your discernment. You may also feel a wave of betrayal. Betrayal carries a unique sting because it involves vulnerability. You opened your heart. You shared plans. You trusted advice. And now, realizing that something was withheld or distorted can feel like a violation of that openness. But remember this: your vulnerability was not a mistake. It was a reflection of your authenticity. The wrongdoing lies in the concealment, not in your willingness to trust. The shock will also clarify who you are. In moments like these, character surfaces. Will you react impulsively or respond wisely? Will you let emotion lead or let faith steady you? There may be an urge to confront immediately, to demand answers, to express hurt with intensity. But timing matters. Words spoken in shock can create wounds that wisdom would avoid. God is preparing you for this reaction in advance so that when the moment arrives, you are anchored. Preparation does not eliminate pain, but it prevents panic. Instead of spiraling into confusion, you will recognize confirmation. Instead of feeling completely blindsided, you will remember that you were warned. Another layer of shock comes from realizing how long something was hidden. Duration intensifies emotion. The longer the concealment, the deeper the impact. You may ask yourself how you missed it, how you didn't see the signs sooner. But do not condemn yourself. Discernment grows through experience. Every lesson sharpens your perception. There is also a spiritual component to this shock. When truth breaks through deception, it disrupts spiritual assignments that were operating quietly. The exposure may feel dramatic because it is dismantling something unseen. What looked like a simple secret may have been influencing more than you realized. It may have been shaping decisions, delaying opportunities, or altering your direction subtly. When that influence is removed, the shift can feel intense. But intensity does not mean instability. It means transition. You might experience a mixture of emotions all at once: relief that truth is finally visible, sadness that the relationship is strained, anger at the concealment, and gratitude that God revealed it before deeper harm occurred. Allow yourself to process without judgment. Emotions are signals, not enemies. The shock will eventually settle into clarity, and clarity brings strength. You will see who stands with integrity and who does not. You will understand which connections are genuine and which were conditional. You will gain insight that protects your future relationships. Most importantly, you will realize that God did not allow this to surprise you without support. He positioned this warning before the exposure so that your spirit could brace itself. He gave you insight before evidence. He gave you preparation before revelation. When the moment comes, and it will come, you will feel the weight of it. But you will not be crushed by it. You will stand steadier than you expect. You will speak calmer than you imagine. You will see clearer than you ever have. And after the shock fades, something unexpected will remain: strength. Because what was meant to unsettle you will ultimately stabilize you. What if the exposure you fear is actually the repositioning you need? What if the secret that shocks you is the very thing that frees you? When God allows hidden truth to surface, it is not only about revealing what was wrong, it is about relocating you into what is right. Exposure is not the end of a relationship alone. It is the beginning of divine rearrangement. Repositioning does not always feel gentle. Sometimes it feels like loss. Sometimes it feels like separation. Sometimes it feels like an unexpected ending. But endings in God's hands are rarely punishments. They are transitions. If someone close to you has been operating in secrecy, their influence may have been quietly shaping your direction. Their words may have been affecting your decisions. Their hidden motives may have been slowing your progress in ways you did not recognize. When truth surfaces, it interrupts that influence. God cannot elevate you while dissection sits comfortably beside you. Elevation requires alignment, and alignment requires truth. If someone in your inner circle is not fully transparent, their presence becomes weight. Even if you love them, even if they have history with you, even if they once supported you sincerely, misalignment, no matter how subtle, creates drag. Repositioning means removing drag. There is a reason exposure often happens right before breakthrough. It clears the path. It eliminates distractions. It silences conflicting voices. It forces you to rely more heavily on God's guidance rather than human reassurance. And in that reliance, you grow stronger. You may notice that after truth is revealed, your vision becomes sharper. Decisions that once felt complicated begin to feel straightforward. Boundaries that once felt uncomfortable become necessary. You begin to recognize who genuinely celebrates your growth and who feels unsettled by it. That awareness is not meant to make you suspicious of everyone. It is meant to help you discern who is assigned to your next season. Your positioning also changes your internal posture. When betrayal or secrecy is uncovered, you learn to listen differently. You observe patterns instead of promises. You weigh actions more heavily than words. This does not make you cynical. It makes you wise. There is a divine exchange happening in this moment. God removes illusion and replaces it with insight. He removes confusion and replaces it with clarity. He removes hidden agendas and replaces them with purified connections. It may feel like something is being taken from you, but in reality, something heavier is being lifted off you. And here is the surprising truth. Sometimes the person who concealed truth is not meant to be cut off entirely, but repositioned at a different distance. Not everyone who fails you is meant to be erased from your life. Some are meant to move from inner circle to outer circle, from decision makers to acquaintances, from confidants to casual contacts. Repositioning does not always mean removal. It means recalibration. God knows the exact placement each person should hold in your life. When someone occupies a space they are not spiritually equipped to handle, imbalance occurs. Exposure corrects placement. It restores order. You may feel resistance to this shift because familiarity is comfortable. Even flawed familiarity feels safer than unfamiliar change. But comfort is not always confirmation. Sometimes comfort is the very thing keeping you from expansion. As this repositioning unfolds, you will notice something else. Peace will begin to replace tension. The subtle discomfort you felt in certain conversations will fade. The inner hesitation you experienced will dissolve. You will feel lighter. That lightness is not denial. It is alignment. What happens after exposure will surprise you, because instead of collapsing, you will accelerate. Instead of shrinking, you will expand. Instead of losing direction, you will gain momentum. The very thing that felt threatening will become freeing. Do not mistake repositioning for rejection. God is not rejecting you. He is refining your environment. He is curating your circle. He is ensuring that those who walk closely with you in the next chapter carry integrity, transparency, and genuine alignment. This is why the shock, though painful, is purposeful. It removes illusions that would have eventually limited you. It dismantles dynamics that would have quietly controlled you. It prepares you for partnerships that are built on honesty. Hold this in your spirit. You are not being set back. You are being set up. Type divine realignment in the comments if you receive this shift. Blessing code 842 is now activated. As you declare this, you are agreeing with heaven's rearrangement. You are welcoming clarity over comfort. You are choosing elevation over familiarity. And you will be glad you stayed for what's about to unfold next. Because repositioning is only the beginning of the outcome God is orchestrating. When God repositions you, He is planting you beside living waters. The scripture declares, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy," and that promise is alive over you now. If this message is clearing your path, then your obedience can help clear the path for someone else trapped in deception. I hear this in my spirit. I am sowing into the light that exposes darkness. When you release a super thanks, step into membership, or give through the PayPal link in the description, or even scan the PayPal QR code flashing on the screen, you are sowing seed into fertile soil where truth sets captives free. This is not a donation. It is a prophetic act that pushes back shadows and releases revelation to souls at their midnight hour. As you give, may open heavens respond over your finances, your household, and your destiny. Do not delay your obedience. Sow now, and let your seed speak before you do. Exposure may be inevitable, but your response is a choice. When the hidden truth comes into the light, the moment will not only reveal the other person's character, it will reveal yours. This is where destiny quietly pivots, not in the shock itself, not in the betrayal itself, but in how you respond when clarity replaces confusion. It is easy to react. It is powerful to respond. The action is immediate, emotional, and often loud. It seeks release. It wants to express hurt instantly. It wants answers now. But response is measured. It is anchored. It considers timing, tone, and long-term consequence. God is not only preparing you for exposure, He is preparing you for mastery over your emotions when it happens. When someone close to you is not telling you the truth, anger feels justified. You may feel disrespected. You may feel manipulated. You may feel foolish for trusting. These emotions are human. But if you allow them to control your actions, they can create damage beyond the original deception. Words spoken in fury can fracture bridges permanently. Decisions made in haste can isolate you unnecessarily. There is strength in restraint. Before you confront, pause. Before you accuse, pray. Before you speak, breathe. Ask God for wisdom that surpasses emotion. Because sometimes silence in the first moment is more powerful than 1,000 heated words. Silence gives you space to observe their reaction when truth surfaces. Silence allows the weight of exposure to settle naturally. Silence protects you from saying something you would later wish you could retract. Your response also determines the spiritual atmosphere that follows. If you respond with rage, chaos increases. If you respond with clarity, peace enters the situation. Peace does not mean weakness. It means control. And control over yourself is one of the highest forms of authority. You must also decide what boundaries to establish. Exposure without boundaries invites repetition. If someone concealed truth once and faces no adjustment in access, nothing changes. Boundaries are not punishments. They are protections. They define what behavior you will accept and what you will not. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and even for them, is to adjust access. There will be a temptation to prove a point, to gather evidence, to expose them publicly. But ask yourself, what outcome do you truly want? Do you want revenge or do you want resolution? Do you want to embarrass or do you want clarity? Your choice shapes the aftermath. In some cases, the relationship may be restored through honest conversation. In others, distance may become necessary. But whichever path unfolds, let it be guided by discernment, not impulse. The goal is not to win an argument. The goal is to align with peace. There is also a deeper layer here: forgiveness. Forgiveness does not mean pretending nothing happened. It does not mean removing consequences. It means releasing the grip of bitterness so it does not poison your future. You can forgive and still create distance. You can forgive and still protect yourself. Forgiveness frees you, not necessarily the relationship. Remember, the exposure itself is God's responsibility. Your response is yours, and heaven is watching how you steward this moment. When you respond with maturity, you elevate. When you respond with wisdom, you accelerate. When you respond with grace, you disarm what was meant to destabilize you. This is where your growth becomes visible. The same situation that could have once shattered you will now refine you. The same betrayal that might have once consumed your thoughts will now teach you discernment without destroying your hope. And as you navigate this, stay connected to voices that reinforce truth, not drama. Guard your words carefully when speaking about the situation. Not everyone needs the details. Oversharing can create unnecessary opinions that complicate healing. Protect the process. If this message is guiding you right now, take a moment to declare, "God is my defender," in the comments. When you type those words, you are reminding yourself that you do not have to fight every battle publicly. God defends your integrity. God protects your name. God sees what others do not. Also, if this message is strengthening you, subscribe to this channel so you remain equipped with prophetic insight for seasons like this. Share this word with someone who may be wrestling with betrayal silently, and let this message reach those standing at their own midnight moment. Your engagement helps light travel farther than you can see. What happens next depends less on what they did and more on how you carry yourself now. Because your response determines whether this becomes a setback or a setup. And what you are about to step into will prove that wisdom always outlasts deception. There is something you must see clearly now. The hidden truth was not just a secret, it was part of a trap. Not necessarily a dramatic scheme woven with obvious malice, but a subtle setup designed to entangle your trust, distort your direction, and quietly weaken your progress. Traps are rarely loud. They are subtle. They are patient. They rely on distraction and assumption. When someone close to you withholds truth, it creates a distorted reality. You make decisions based on incomplete information. You adjust your plans around narratives that are not fully accurate. You extend loyalty where transparency is absent. Over time, this distortion can influence your path more than you realize. That is how traps operate. They do not attack your strength directly. They manipulate your perception. The trap may have been emotional. Perhaps the secrecy was designed to keep you dependent, unsure, or constantly seeking validation. If someone controls what you know, they indirectly control how you respond. And if your responses are shaped by partial truths, your stability begins to shift. The trap may have been relational. Maybe the concealed information created distance between you and others without you understanding why. You might have felt isolated in certain decisions. You might have sensed subtle tension with people who seem suddenly distant. Sometimes, when one person filters information, they influence how multiple relationships unfold. The trap may have even been strategic. If you were on the brink of opportunity, new partnerships, career moves, spiritual growth, hidden motives could have slowed or redirected that momentum. A single withheld detail can change timing. A single distorted fact can influence direction. Traps do not always destroy instantly. They delay gradually. But here is what the enemy did not account for. God sees traps before you step fully into them. There is a reason exposure is happening now. You are about to move deeper. You are about to commit further. You are about to rely more heavily on the very person whose secrecy was misaligned. And God intervened before the entanglement became more complex. Think about how traps function physically. They rely on blindness. Once you see them, they lose power. Their effectiveness disappears the moment you recognize their presence. In the same way, once deception is exposed, it can no longer operate covertly. It must either confront truth or retreat. This is why you should not interpret exposure as loss. It is deliverance. The trap was set, but you were not destined to remain in it. What was meant to slow you will now sharpen you. What was meant to entangle you will now educate you. You may begin to realize certain past frustrations were connected to this hidden dynamic. Perhaps decisions felt heavier than they should have. Perhaps confusion lingered longer than expected. Perhaps progress felt delayed without clear reason. Sometimes the weight we feel is not external pressure. It is internal distortion caused by incomplete truth. God dismantles traps methodically. He exposes small cracks first. He allows subtle inconsistencies to surface. He gives you internal nudges before external evidence. And when the full truth rises, it is not chaotic. It is conclusive. Do not underestimate how protected you are. The very fact that you were warned before deeper damage occurred is proof of divine oversight. Not everyone receives insight before exposure. Many discover truth only after consequences have multiplied. But you were alerted in advance. That means your steps are being guarded. There is also an important shift happening inside you. Once you recognize a trap, you become harder to trap again. Awareness increases resilience. Discernment becomes sharper. You begin to notice patterns earlier. You ask better questions. You listen more carefully to what is not being said. This does not mean you live suspiciously. It means you live wisely. The trap that was set against you may have seemed strong because it involved someone you trusted. But trust does not override truth. And truth has now entered the situation. That changes everything. Even if the person did not consciously intend harm, the structure of secrecy created vulnerability. And vulnerability, left unchecked, becomes opportunity for deeper damage. God closed that door before it widened. You may feel disappointment knowing that what you believed was stable had hidden instability. But disappointment is lighter than devastation. And devastation is what would have followed if this had continued unchecked. Now the dynamic shifts. The trap loses its grip. Influence changes. As this adjusts, and you regain clarity that had been subtly clouded. The enemy's strategy was subtle, but God's protection is stronger. What was set against you will not prosper. What was designed to confuse you will not control you. What was meant to entangle you will not define you. The trap has been exposed. An exposure is the first step toward complete freedom. After the secret is revealed, there will be a silence. Not the silence of ignorance, but the silence of understanding. It is the quiet moment when everything settles into place. The questions you carried will either be answered directly or confirmed internally. The confusion that once hovered over your thoughts will begin to clear. And in that clearing, you will feel something unexpected: relief. Relief does not mean the situation was painless. It means uncertainty no longer controls you. There is a strange heaviness that comes from not knowing the full truth. It lingers in conversations. It hides in pauses. It creates tension you cannot explain. Once truth surfaces, even if it hurts, it removes that invisible weight. You finally know what you are dealing with. Clarity is powerful. After exposure, you will begin to see the relationship differently. Not necessarily with hatred, but with realism. Illusions fade. You no longer project intentions that were never there. You no longer assume motives that were misaligned. You begin to evaluate based on evidence rather than hope. There may be a season of distance. Distance is not always permanent separation. Sometimes it is necessary space for reflection. Reflection allows emotions to cool and wisdom to rise. In that space, you will decide what restoration looks like, or whether restoration is even appropriate. If the relationship continues, it will not continue the same way. It cannot. Truth change in dynamics. Trust, once fractured, must be rebuilt intentionally. That requires transparency from both sides. It requires accountability. It requires patience. And not every person is willing to walk that road. If the relationship ends, it will not mean you failed. It will mean the alignment was temporary. Some connections are seasonal. They serve a purpose for a time, then fade when that purpose is complete. Letting go does not erase the value of what once existed. It simply acknowledges that seasons shift. After the secret is revealed, you will also notice a strengthening within yourself. You will trust your intuition more. You will listen more closely to subtle signals. You will move with greater awareness. The experience will not make you guarded in fear. It will make you grounded in discernment. There is another important layer to this moment: divine justice. Justice does not always look dramatic. It does not always involve confrontation or public correction. Sometimes justice is simply exposure. When truth is revealed, consequences follow naturally. You do not have to orchestrate them. You do not have to defend your name aggressively. Truth has a way of defending itself. You may also find that other pieces of your life begin to align once the secret is no longer hidden. Opportunities that felt stalled may accelerate. Relationships that felt distant may grow stronger. Peace that felt interrupted may return steadily. When one source of subtle tension is removed, the rest of your life can recalibrate. Do not underestimate how much hidden stress you were carrying without realizing it. When someone close to you is not fully transparent, your spirit senses it even if your mind cannot define it. That subtle awareness creates internal strain. Once the truth is visible, that strain decreases. There may still be moments of sadness. That is natural. You invested emotion. You shared history. Let yourself grieve what you thought the relationship was. Grieving does not mean regret. It means acknowledgement. But do not stay in grief. Move forward with the clarity you gain. Let the lesson shape you, not harden you. Let the revelation strengthen your boundaries, not close your heart entirely. After the secret is revealed, you will stand differently. You will speak with more intention. You will choose your inner circle more carefully. You will understand that trust is sacred and must be stewarded wisely. Most importantly, you will see God's protection in hindsight. You will realize that exposure came at the right time, and not too early to cause unnecessary suspicion, not too late to cause irreversible damage. The timing will reveal mercy, and when you look back on this chapter, you will not only remember the shock, you will remember the growth. You will remember the clarity. You will remember the strength that emerged from what once felt destabilizing. The secret will not define your story. What defines your story is how you rose after it was revealed. You have now walked through the warning, the exposure, the shock, the repositioning, and the clarity. And here is the final truth you must carry in your spirit. God did not reveal this to break you. He revealed it to bless you. When someone close to you is not telling you the truth, it can feel like the ground beneath you has shifted. But what actually shifted was illusion. And illusion is never a safe foundation. The truth is, even painful truth is more stable than comfortable deception. What God has done in this season is replace unstable ground with solid clarity. You were not overlooked. You were not abandoned. You were not naive beyond repair. You were protected. The warning came before the full impact. The stirring in your spirit came before the evidence. The preparation came before the revelation. That is not coincidence. That is divine covering. There are people who discover betrayal too late, after contracts are signed, after commitments are sealed, after damage multiplies. But in your case, heaven intervened early. That alone is proof that your life is being guarded with intention. Yes, the truth shocked you. Yes, it touched your heart deeply. But look at you now. You are still standing. You are clear. You are wise. You are more discerning. The very situation that could have shaken your confidence has instead strengthened your awareness. And here is the prophetic assurance. This exposure has cleared the path for acceleration. What was hidden was creating subtle resistance. It was slowing decisions. It was influencing direction. It was adding weight you could not see. Now that it has been removed, you will feel movement. You will sense momentum. You will notice doors opening with less friction. Do not allow fear to linger after clarity has arrived. Fear belongs to darkness. You are walking in light now. And light reveals not only what was wrong, it also reveals what is possible. You will trust again. But you will trust with wisdom. You will connect again. But you will connect with discernment. You will love again. But you will love without blindness. This is maturity, not mistrust. God is also restoring your peace. The subtle tension that once lived in your conversations will fade. The inner questions that replayed in your mind will quiet down. You will sleep differently. Think differently. Decide differently. Because clarity brings rest. If there is any temptation to replay the betrayal repeatedly in your mind, release it. The lesson has been learned. The trap has been dismantled. The motive has been revealed. There is no need to live in the moment of shock any longer. Step forward. This chapter was not written to humiliate you. It was written to elevate you. And now, as we close this message, I want to seal it prophetically over your life. Type "I walk in truth" in the comments if you receive this word. Blessing code 911 is now activated. As you declare those words, you are aligning yourself with light over darkness, clarity over confusion, wisdom over impulse. You are declaring that no hidden agenda will override your destiny. You are stepping into a season where what surrounds you matches what is spoken to you. The same God who exposed what was hidden is the God who multiplies what is surrendered. He says to you now, give, and it shall be given unto you, not as a distant verse, but as a living invitation. If this message protected your path, imagine how many others are standing on the edge of their own midnight moment. I declare this boldly. I am sowing into the truth that sets captives free. When you release a super thanks, step into membership, or give through the PayPal link in the description, or scan the PayPal QR code on your screen, you are planting seed into soil that produces light, oil, and breakthrough for souls across the world. This is not charity. It is covenant participation in spreading God's word. As you sow, may rivers of provision flow back into your household, and may open heavens respond to your obedience. Do not hesitate. Activate your seed now, and let your giving speak prophetically. Remember this above all: God is not finished with you. This exposure was not an ending, it was a cleansing. It was not rejection, it was redirection. It was not loss, it was preparation. You did not skip God. You listened. You opened before midnight. And because you responded, you are stepping into a future that is clearer, lighter, and divinely aligned. Walk forward with confidence. You are covered.